Hi, everybody. Welcome to another resilience and mindfulness class video. In this video, this is called Ask Us Anything. So we kind of recap what's been going on, what we've been talking about in our classes. We have a short practice, and then we have lots of time for questions and answers. So if you'd like to join us live, you can ask your questions. Otherwise, enjoy the video.
What happened?
Oh, I was waiting for you.
Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
everybody.
Oh, sorry. I was waiting for you. Welcome, everyone, to the Mindfulness and Resilience practice session. My name is Vivian Hermiz, and I am your co-host along with Frank Baird. Hi, Frank.
Hi, Vivian. Hi, everybody.
And this month's theme has been working with obstacles. I think we named it something else, something similar.
Turning obstacles into allies.
So this month's theme was turning obstacles into allies. And as we do at the end of a month's theme, we open it up to a session where we can talk about practice, any aspect of practice, or the theme itself, or how you experience the different practices. Any and all questions are welcome related to your practice or our practice. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank to kind of get us in.
Thank you. So I'll start with a recap. So if you're new here, welcome. You don't have to have been here. If you want to explore some of the things we did earlier in the month, the videos, all but one, are up, so you can see them on YouTube. But I'll just recap a bit about what we did, turning obstacles into allies. And tonight is Ask Us Anything. And we really mean that. You can ask us anything, whether it's about this month's theme or the practice we do today or your practice. Ask us anything. We're not saying we have the answers. It's just an invitation to ask us anything. We could be grifters and tell you anything, but I don't think we'll do that. We're not good at that. We're not good at being cult leaders or grifters because we're not evil. Anyway, so this is the challenge with challenges. Often people think that if they sit to practice, if they try to engage in a meditation, that if they're not in the mood or something gets in the way, they feel like I can't meditate. And we think it's really helpful to view challenges as the practice. The idea is you don't have to get through anything to get to practice. Everything is the practice. And when you start to take up that relationship to challenges, you'll notice that life is a lot less daunting because you start to change your relationship to whatever's happening. You start to be more open, more accepting, or more tolerant to whatever's happening because your perspective really has shifted to, I'm going to do what I intend to do almost regardless. Instead of I can only do what I wanted to do if I felt like it, or if I was in the mood, or if my body wasn't too achy, or whatever. So if you think about challenges, there are often hopes or expectations that this moment be different than it is. And the practice is, can I, to the best of my ability, lean in the direction of being with this moment just the way it is? Notice that was a question. Can I? Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is not right now or not in this way, and that's okay. The practice is noticing that, and then you have a choice about how you want to continue to relate to that. So some things it's like, nope, not going to do that, never going to get good at that. And some things that's, okay, if I can see that this is interfering with my interest or my ability to try or to learn or to become more skillful, then I'll embrace the effort, even if it's still hard. So the idea here is that we often think of the outcome. I'm sitting down to meditate because I want this at the end. And it's really helpful to focus less on what you want in the end and focus on what's going on right now and what is your relationship to what's going on right now. So these were the challenges that we explored. Craving or aversion. You'll notice those are two sides of the same coin, or on a continuum. They're the opposite ends. Craving or aversion, apathy or sleepiness, restlessness, anxiety, worry, or doubt. Those four are put together because those are activities of the mind or emotions or body that have us wiggling around a bit so that it's harder to do whatever the practice is, especially if the practice is being still, or even if you're doing some movement practice. Restlessness or anxiety or worry can really interfere with that. For example, we always recommend that if you're doing a movement practice like walking or swaying or some other kind of movement, that you slow it down so that you can really pay attention to all the nuances of what's happening with you around that movement. And if you're experiencing restlessness or anxiety, it can be really hard to slow down. Or I've done walking meditation and been feeling restless, and instead of like slow step, slow step, slow step, it's like I race from one end of the path to the other end and then back, and right, I'm really not being in the moment. My mind is elsewhere, and my body's demonstrating that by making me less slow and less patient and less present. So this month we talked about different things you can do in relation to each of these. And we talked about it in terms of like making adjustments. So you're in a particular place. If you notice craving is happening, there are some particular adjustments that you can make that can help either manage that or ease the craving or ease the aversion. Tonight, I'm not going to talk about all those things specifically, except in this way. So there are mental adjustments you can make. There are physical adjustments you can make. And I really like this notion called opposite action. So the idea here is if I'm practicing and sleepiness is happening, and my intention was to stay awake, one of the things I might notice is, what is sleepiness making me do, encouraging me to do? Sleepiness operates in a particular way. And if I can be mindfully aware of what sleepiness is doing, I may not know how to be more awake, except I can engage in opposite action, right? So I may not remember a list of, you could try this, you could try this, you could try this. But if I remember opposite action, do the opposite of what sleepiness is telling me to do, I'm going to come up with an adjustment. So for example, if sleepiness, the effect of sleepiness is it slowing me down, my body is slumping, my energy is dissipating or gone, and my intention was to stay awake for a practice, opposite action would be, let me energize my body. Let me change the way my body is configured. Sleep configures the body in a particular way. Opposite action is do the opposite. So it's if sleepiness has me slumping over, I might sit up taller. I might breathe more deeply because sleepiness is causing me to have more shallow breathing. I might stand up if I'm sitting down, because sitting down and being still might make me too vulnerable to sleepiness. So when you think about mental and physical adjustments, if you can remember a particular strategy, remember it and try it. And if not, remember opposite action. Do the opposite of whatever it is that's bothering you. And I have to say, the opposite action, the way I mean it here, does not mean don't practice, Right, because that happens too, right? I might be feeling restless, or I might be experiencing doubt about, like, what's the point of this? What am I really going to get out of this? Or is this going to be what I hoped it would be, like relaxing or peaceful, or will I feel energized, right? All of that, I could understand opposite action to be don't practice, because that gets me out of that whole field where I don't have to think about or experience doubt or restlessness. So I don't mean opposite action as in bounce out of the practice. It's opposite action within the intention and the interest and the effort to practice. And it really is opposite action in relation to the obstacle. I guess we're going to have to start saying obstacles with air quotes, since we're talking about them not being obstacles. So the adjustments are mental, what you do with your attention, where you focus your attention, how you focus your attention, and the physical, which is how your body is being configured and whether or not that's supportive of your interest and your effort in the particular practice you're doing in that particular moment. So that's the summary. Let's do a practice. So to do this, all you have to do is get comfortable. You can do this in stillness or slow, deliberate movement. Your eyes can be open or closed, whichever you feel more comfortable with. You can listen to my voice. I'll be providing some instructions. There'll be suggestions. Try this, try that, notice this, notice that. Notice what's happening for you. And as best you can, establish and sustain a friendly, gentle attitude toward whatever is happening. Emphasis again on as best you can. I really like the phrase leaning into, because that may suggest I don't get all the way there, but I'm leaning in that direction. So can I lean in the direction of having a friendly or gentle attitude toward whatever's happening, separate from whether it's pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? And then, as always in any practice, stop if you need to. And again, a reminder that stopping isn't opposite action in terms of these obstacles we're talking about, like sleepiness. Stopping is really if I can't do this, there is no adjustment. So I'll use sleepiness as my favorite example. If there's nothing I'm doing that is helping me be awake enough, I might stop the practice and either take a nap or get up and go do something else. But I'm thinking also, like, if you're doing the practice and you notice things like you're dissociating, which is different than daydreaming, or you're feeling more anxious, or like you notice something's really going on. Sometimes it's like trauma related, sometimes it's something else. If you need to stop, stop. Trust yourself on that. There are ways you can practice to work with the increasing urge to give up on the practice in a given moment. And that takes some skill, takes some training, and the ability to discern between this is something I can manage or overcome or work with, which is different than, no, I need to take a break because there's something, I'm getting dysregulated and I'm not able to like be mindful or really have a choice in what I'm doing or how I'm doing. So with that said, let's practice. So if you haven't already, find a comfortable enough posture. And I often like to start by bringing attention to my body and noticing what it's like to be in this body right now. So I might do a brief assessment, recognizing that some thinking is happening. And can I make a friendly, gentle effort to not get caught up or lost in the thinking? Just registering it's happening. Thinking is happening. And then can I check in on the feeling tone of my experience in this moment? Right now, is this moment pleasant, unpleasant, neutral? And again, what I'm doing is, as best I can, noticing and trying not to get caught up in any of it or lost in any of it. And then you might bring attention to any emotions that are happening. Maybe there are some, maybe there aren't, maybe there's one, maybe there's a mixture. Noticing, acknowledging, emotions are happening. And then bringing attention to the body. And noticing, what state is the body in right now? What kind of energy is happening in the body? Is it energetic, awake, alert? Is it peaceful, content, settled? Is it tired or lethargic? And so at the start of this meditation, you're checking in. Sometimes this is called a 4-point check-in. Checking in on how you are at the beginning of the meditation. And then with this check-in starts the first adjustment. Are there tense or tight places in my body? And if there are, can I quickly assess, is that tension or tightness needed right now? If it is, leave it alone. And if it's not, can you make a gentle, friendly effort to let go of as much of that as you can? If you notice that the body is tired, maybe it's slumping, there's weakness or fatigue in different places in the body, then you might experiment with the adjustment of opposite action. What might you do right now that might invigorate the body, even just a little bit? While considering these adjustments, be careful not to start paying attention to any thinking or judgment about it too much. Have the adjustment be brief. If you can do it, do it. If you can't do it briefly or can't figure it out, don't try to figure it out, let it go. And then sometimes it helps to practice with an attention anchor or a meditation anchor. One that people often use is breathing. So you might bring attention to breathing and just feel it happening. And it's an anchor because whenever attention wanders off or gets pulled away, when you notice, you can gently bring attention back to breathing, back to feeling breathing happening. One of the adjustments we're constantly making with an attention anchor is noticing where attention is. If it's where we meant it to be, noticing and acknowledging. It's right where I wanted it to be. And if it's anywhere else, acknowledging it's someplace else and then gently bringing it back to breathing. Noticing where attention is now. And if it's anywhere else, gently bringing it back to breathing. Let breathing be a place to rest attention, a place to focus attention, or to restart the effort at paying attention. Just feeling breathing happening. Notice where attention is now. And make any adjustment you feel you might need to make that would benefit practice. So if attention has become caught up in some thinking, consider opposite action. What do you do? What adjustment do you make if attention is caught up in thinking? or if attention is caught up in some body sensation or some emotion, what adjustment might you make right now in honor of your intention to practice? Notice where attention is now. Often in the silence between instructions, the mind wanders off or races off. And maybe you hear a sound somewhere else and attention goes to that sound. Or maybe in the silence your body slumps a little bit because you're feeling relaxed and you're not particularly paying attention. So just noticing what's happening right now. And are there any adjustments you'd like to make in support of practice? Maybe there are, maybe there aren't. Where is attention now? It can be valuable to notice how you are in silence? Can you be with the silence just the way it is? Or do you try to occupy it with thinking or emotions or body movements? No judging, just noticing as best you can. Where is attention? And are there any adjustments you might make right now in support of this particular practice happening right now? You might notice if you're experiencing any of the obstacles we've talked about this month, craving in this moment, wanting more of something, or aversion in this moment, wanting less of something, or sleepiness in this moment, having a hard time staying awake, or apathy in this moment, not caring about what's going on in this moment or your practice, not caring where attention goes or the configuration of the body. Or maybe restlessness, needing the mind to be active or the body to be active instead of being still or engaged in slow movement. And noticing if there's something like anxiety happening. That might show up as a question like, how long is this going to keep going on? Or why can't I do this a particular way? Or noticing if doubt is happening. Doubt might show up as like, how is this supposed to be helpful? Why am I doing this? So just noticing. Are you experiencing any of the obstacles that we talked about this month? And if so, what gentle, friendly adjustment might you make so that this is your practice and not an obstacle to practice? And then as we near the end of tonight's practice, if you'd like, you might express some appreciation to yourself. Appreciation for taking this time to practice, making this effort, regardless of whether it went the way you wanted it to or not, regardless of judgment. Express some appreciation for your efforts, for your willingness, some appreciation for you. And to conclude our practice for tonight, if your eyes are closed, you might open them and move them around. You might move your head around, look up to the side. You might shrug your shoulders, stretch, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, yawn if you'd like. And this will conclude our practice for tonight. Thank you for your practice. And now we have the aforementioned Ask Us Anything opportunity.
And we do have a couple of comments, Frank. The first one is, I can change my mindset to being hopeful and positive, but it's hard to obtain the physical energy. I question if I'm really feeling content or hopeful. I become so agitated. I'm not sure where slips the word slip. Why do I become so agitated when I experience physical pain? Sometimes I can switch back, but most of the time I succumb to the pain and feel exhausted.
Yeah, I think, so remember we say friendly, gentle effort, and part of that is acknowledging when you can't. Because often, so many of us, if we can't do something we intended to do or we wanted to do, we get mad at ourselves. And fair enough to be disappointed, and fair enough to wish or want it to be different, and better to go, this is how it is in this moment, and this is what I had. And I think one of the tricky things is, right, like the mindset to be hopeful and positive, right? It takes energy to be hopeful and positive. It takes a different kind of energy to be sad or depressed, but it takes energy. And that's why we talk about opposite action in terms of, can I generate the opposite of whatever the thing is that's having this effect on me? And sometimes the answer is no. And I think around especially physical discomfort, sometimes I notice my attitude is easily like, forget it, I'm just going to be pissed off. I mostly acknowledge that to myself when I'm already pissed off, because I can't get the relief that I'm wanting or that I'm needing. And so then it's really helpful to go, I'm doing the best that I can. And also to continue to practice, because like for me, sleepiness is the ongoing challenge. And so for a long time, I would practice for a little while and then nap. And that actually helped me get to a place where, okay, I'm going to try to stay awake for 2 minutes longer than I have in the past, and then 2 minutes longer than I have in the past. With physical discomfort, you might practice for a minute and then take a break or rest.
The follow-up is, I don't want to feel disappointed. I want to be able to accept it and move on. And that is the ultimate request, like goal, is to be with whatever is happening in our life and not get strewn in every direction. But physical pain in particular, there's like an existential threat around it, depending on how intense it is. And I think it is just a different kind of agitation, I would say, compared to like mental restlessness when it comes down to bodily pain. I don't know. I would say the only option is practicing with it and getting to know your pain and knowing that pain isn't a monolith. So we'll say, I'm in pain. You know, I've worked with people in the past where like they're just having what initially is just, they're just having immense physical pain. And when we start getting very specific of where the pain is and how it's exhibiting in that area, we start narrowing it around it and realizing, oh, for example, a migraine can be a very sharp pain in a particular area, but it overwhelms the system. But if you can bring your practice to it, you narrow in and you're like, oh, it's actually in maybe 10% of my full body. There's parts of my body that are perfectly neutral, if not full on pleasant. But it's the nature of the mind to go to where the help is needed. And the pain is the call for help, right? So being able to kind of take stock and assess over the course of the whole body also helps.
And I think that's an excellent place to go. I'm relating to pain as an obstacle to well-being in this moment.
Yeah.
Pain is the obstacle to my being in the mood I want to be in or do the things I want to do. And not to minimize things like I have to go to work and I've got this migraine or I've got cramps. I need to take care of my family, my child, my pets, whatever, right? Those are a different kind of, I was going to say a different kind of obstacle. I think a very real obstacle. And if we look at our relationship to the obstacle and really kind of acknowledge, I can't necessarily, when I can't get past this. I mean, sometimes we can. That's the tricky thing, right? Sometimes I can get past the physical discomfort to go do the thing. And when I can't, will I benefit from, instead of looking at that as an obstacle, maybe I won't be an ally, but that can be the focus of my practice. What do I need to do? What kind of practice do I need to engage in to meet this moment the way it is? Because this moment is the way it is. And I think the big challenge is, like, all of us feel like there are conditions for happiness. And part of this practice makes it possible to experience more happiness more often, more easily, because we stop we stop having so many requirements for happiness. These are the conditions for happiness. So, for example, it's possible to be happy and in pain simultaneously, depending. I always want to be careful about
independent of conditions, right?
Yeah. And that's nice. The way I think of it too is like happiness for no good reason. I love it.
Yeah.
When I'm going, I'm
for
happy.
For no reason at all.
For no good reason. Yep. Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting thing to think of happiness as not something that's induced by conditions. That it's something that can exist independent of any other conditions.
Yeah.
But really any emotion can get drawn up. You know, if you think about if we could control our own thoughts and really kind of, do traffic control, traffic management of negative thoughts. Oh my God, my hand thing's doing things. I need to keep my hands low. It's really important to think about that these are not, we can't control them. If we could, we would, right? There's elements of being a human. So how best can we relate to them? And this is what we were kind of talking about in terms of all the different ways you can work with them. And we've got a couple comments. Someone likes the happiness for no good reason. Yeah, just do it, as the saying goes.
Here's one about craving. Craving came up for
Yes.
me. I feel as if I'm craving more satisfaction from life. I need to unpack this and find out what is making life feel unsatisfied. And so I'll say this proviso one last time. It won't be the last time. I always feel like I need to say it's both and.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes we don't have to figure out why something's happening. From a mindfulness perspective, we need to know that it's happening and then have a choice point. Do I want to keep doing that or do I want to do something else? And then have the skill to do the something else. So in that sense, it doesn't matter why it's happening. What matters is, am I aware of it and do I have the skill to do the different thing? Now that's different than wanting to know, right? Part of insight and like self-knowledge is the wanting to know. But I'd say for me, my bias is in the direction of, can I interrupt it and develop the skill so that I get the benefit of that? And then in my leisure time, I'll explore the reasons why. Because I don't want to spend that time figuring out why, because then I still have to do the skill building.
That's right. So like cultivating the positive, like what is kind of making a list of what is satisfying. What do you find? What do you relish and savor? And just piling that on over the course of every day. Making the most, I would say, the simplest of things to the most complex of things. Like taking a trip abroad being a very complex thing that would be satisfying. Having an ice cream being something more accessible. And just creating a list of all the things that you find and satisfying, whether it's even maybe practice falls under there, right? Taking time out to practice. So, and then just including as many of those things in the course of your day as you can. Playing with my dog or my cat and, spending time with good friends, catching up with people that I haven't, whatever it is, I'm just, riffing. But finding those things and just being methodical in that way, creating the list and then making the bucket that's easy, medium, accessible, very more challenging to get. But now you have a list and you can just start filling the days in with those things. I think a lot of times we live our days, which is fine to just kind of going through the motions, but we get dragged by circumstances. We get dragged by other people because we haven't approached it in a more methodical way. And that's usually it's okay to live life that way and just kind of free, what do you call it? Free fall it.
Yeah.
But if we catch ourselves in a pattern, how much more can we support ourselves to dig ourselves out of a emotional hole by doing the things? And part of it is doing the opposite, right? So if you are laying around and I don't know, you don't want to do the dishes or you don't want to do the laundry, maybe doing that and then give yourself a little treat. And then, just doing the little things that help motivate you so that you can kind of dig out of that mental hole.
I would say
But physical pain is different.
A big treat if you're talking about laundry. But yeah, I was just looking at that comment too. It's not easy for physical pain versus worrying about bills. I would say that depends. I know often I feel like I wish I had the problems that I believe would be easier to deal with than my problems, right? So I think people who struggle with anxiety, like have anxiety disorders, it's torture, right? So worrying about bills is going to actually produce some physicality to it as well. So we want to emphasize that we're not saying any of these are easy. and there's suffering attached to or resulting from all of them. And really notice the both and. I might be feeling like I would rather have some physical pain than, say, worry about bills. But I also know that, one of the things anxiety does is it creates these horror scenarios about a million different things. Whereas at least pain for me is like, it's only this that hurts. Of course, then I could also have some worry about like, uh-oh, do I have the whatever it is that's going to cause me to die or, lose a limb or something, right? So I think it's really helpful to go, if I'm considering, say, worrying about bills as less difficult, less challenging than physical pain, can I explore why that is?
And it also, I think, speaks to our uniqueness, because we were just talking before we came live about how my physical pain tolerance is like this. And I'll just like, I'll freak out. But mental anguish, we'll call it, I've got a huge threshold for mental anguish, and everybody is different in that way, right? Some people have, and again, we want to normalize it all because we come in different shapes and colors and capacities, and it doesn't even matter the why, but how much more important is it to build that intimate knowledge of myself, to know that physical pain is, I don't have huge capacity for it. And so maybe I don't need to sensitize myself because my body immediately sensitizes to me to it. My mind reacts to it. Whereas like mental anguish, I can endure quite a bit before I can come online and say, oh, there's something seriously wrong here. Right. So maybe the mentalization part is the one that I need to turn my attention towards more and be more keen around, because the signals already fire pretty loudly for the physical. It's just something to like assess for yourself, I would say, and then meet it as skillfully as you can.
And it may be different moment by moment, day by day. 100%. I know there are some days when I have physical discomfort and I'm just like a whiny baby, and I'll just go, I'm not even going to get out of bed. And then there are some days I go like, okay, everything hurts, which is an overstatement, and I'm carrying on. So every moment is different. And the invitation here is, can we be mindful of what's happening in that moment and then make any adjustments that we can or we want to or need to be able to be more with that moment the way it is, rather than needing it to be different. We can always want it to be different. I feel like that's inevitable, right? If it's unpleasant, I always want something pleasant. If it's pleasant, I always want it to last longer than it ever does. And what adjustment do I need to make in this moment? If it's a pleasant moment and it starts to dissipate, an adjustment would be to let it go, not hold on. If it's unpleasant, probably part of the unpleasantness is me fighting this moment and also having the experience of the limitations of my power to make this moment any different than it is.
We have a question that says, how did you guys become a team?
How did we become a team? Oh, we I think we crossed paths a couple of times at UCLA events.
Yeah, we both did our trainings for certification different years. Frank was a year ahead of me, but we met at a recertification, and we found out we both worked for the same company. And I had started the Mindful Hub, and he was doing mindfulness offerings through behavioral health, and then we teamed up. So he was supporting the work I was doing in the mindfulness program for employees, and I was supporting him in the work that he was doing externally with patients.
And then we just
and
have
we've had
fun.
So much fun.
Exactly. There's no stopping us.
We really enjoy it. So yeah, and this is, I want to remind you all that we invite you to share the link and invite those that you think would benefit from this series. We're starting a new series, so that's always a good time to start with us. So you're picking up on a new topic, and yeah.
And I guess it's time for us to go for tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your questions and comments. Thank you for your practice. And come back next week. We'll do some more of it. And this part, I can't say this part without being ironic, even though it's also sincere. And follow us on YouTube and like and subscribe. We need
smash that button.
We need the special
effects. Or is it
effects.
smash that button?
Yeah, smash that
effects.
like button.